second base, so the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earth.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I'm Dave Gonzalez, live with the newsroom here at Action News 8. As you probably know, we just experienced a major quake here on the Central Coast, and we're still trying to get things together here ourselves.
1989, I was about 15 years old. I was a freshman in high school, and as a 15-year-old teenager, I was taking a nap, and I remember it was World Series that day, but I wasn't interested at that time, and I was taking a nap on my bunk bed, and I remember falling off the bunk bed for some reason, and I was in a daze, and I woke up and I saw the walls in our bedroom shaking or moving side to side, back and forth. And I immediately looked outside, and I saw all the cars had stopped and everybody was honking their horn. And then I looked at the power lines. At the time, it was right outside our bedroom window. Everything was moving side to side, and then the power went out.
That was the day I was taking a test. I was going down to take my GED. And I had driven down what was called the Cypress structure. That's the one that collapsed in central Oakland. And we were in the test site taking the test when the earthquake hit.
We had a 2-story house, an old Victorian home. And I remember being in my room and I was reading a book and I was in bed and we felt the earthquake. And I ran out into the stair area, the hallway. And I looked and our entire house was cracking in half. So we just saw our house swaying back and forth.
Because my dad's kind of a looky-loo tourist kind of guy, and he actually traveled to San Francisco to watch all the destruction and the fires after pleading for him not to go.
It was one of those things where you feel like something important just happened. Big changes have happened. You know, I had friends in downtown Santa Cruz. Downtown Santa Cruz went down. They had to rebuild Santa Cruz's downtown.
We ran outside and everybody was on the streets yelling and screaming. And it was just chaos that I had never seen before.
So 1989 was the Loma Prieta earthquake. The Marina district of San Francisco had a lot of damage. And the reason for that is that the Marina district, in fact, the whole edge of the bay is largely man-made land. So, you know, San Francisco kind of became populated very rapidly in the gold rush. And so over the years following that, they very rapidly expanded the amount of land mass that people were living on. The Marina district is an entirely filled in basin. And so that's a problem because what happens when you have an earthquake is that the seismic waves, as they travel up through those soft sediments to the surface, they get amplified. So you have much stronger ground shaking around the margins of the bay on this man-made land than you do in the core of San Francisco, but that ground motion got amplified in the Marina district, causing a lot of damage in San Francisco. So we would expect to see the same trends in future earthquakes.
2025 San Francisco, lively, happy, and sprawling with millions of life. Yet it all faces the same fate, the terror of the great San Andreas Fault, a boundary line between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate that stretches 800 miles from the Gulf of California and veers off the coast of San Francisco. The fault runs off in San Francisco's backyard, Daly City. From the south, the fault runs under family neighborhoods, businesses, and highways. The fault was created 300 million years ago and reaches 10 miles deep within the Earth's surface. The fault has been the cause of major earthquakes in the Bay Area, resulting in death and destruction not even 35 years ago. Every day, millions of people walk around the San Francisco Bay Area, but little do they know, small earthquakes are happening almost every day along the massive fault line that are leading up to a major quake.
You know, we think of the planet as being a stationary body. It's not. It's very much in motion. And so the internal structure of the Earth is in this state of convection, and that drives these surface plates to move relative to one another. And so North America and the Pacific are moving with respect to one another like this. The San Andreas fault is right along that barrier. So these plates are moving constantly, they don't stop. And as they move, the strain builds up at the join, the San Andreas fault, until the fault is just not strong enough anymore to hold that built-up strain. And so it pops, and that's what the earthquake is. The reality is that every day, there are literally hundreds of very small earthquakes on the San Andreas fault, on the Hayward Fault in the East Bay. And every time one of those earthquakes triggers, sometimes the next patch on the fault triggers, and sometimes the next patch and the next patch fault triggers. So we have lots of very small magnitude earthquakes constantly happening on these faults that we can detect with our seismic network. But then one day, for whatever reason, the right patch is going to trigger, and it's going to cause the next patch and the next patch and the next patch, and it's going to grow, and it's going to become a very big earthquake.
April 18th, 1906. The city was ill prepared for the dangers they faced. 5:12 a.m., the city was awoken by a 7.9 magnitude earthquake. The violent shaking lasted 60 seconds and was felt as far as Oregon, Nevada, and Los Angeles. The surface rupture length was found to be 296 miles, which spanned from San Juan Bautista to just south of Eureka. Studies found the surface offset to be anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. A fence was recorded moving 8.5 feet during the earthquake. After the tragedy, over 3,000 lives were lost and 28,000 buildings were destroyed, leaving it as one of the strongest earthquakes San Francisco's Bay Area has ever seen. But 83 years later, the new and improved city was attacked by the nightmare all over again. October 17th, 1989. It was the World Series Battle of the Bay, San Francisco Giants versus Athletics. The city was lively, celebrating this joyous moment. Until 5:04 p.m., the San Andreas fault shifted again and terrorized the city with a magnitude of 6.9. There are some similarities between real life and fiction. The 2015 San Andreas movie shows off the San Andreas fault to the world and does it in a big way. But are these moments what the city will really expect?
You know, they show a huge crack that's, 10 meters wide. So we don't expect to see anything like that. When the 1906 earthquake occurred, so it's a strike-slip fault, which means that the two plates move like this, and so that's completely unrealistic. The way they show people interacting with damaging buildings is sort of absurd. I mean, in a big earthquake, the shaking is so strong that people can't stand up. So it's not like you can get up during an earthquake and try and run around or leave a building or something like that. You will immediately fall over. And in fact, a very large fraction of the injuries that happen in earthquakes are because people fall over and injure themselves, or things like bookcases fall on people. You don't expect a tsunami. You get a tsunami in a subduction zone, which is where you have a vertical motion of the seafloor. And we have that offshore of Oregon and Washington. But here in California, we don't expect to see that. We expect to see just the horizontal motion. And so we don't expect a tsunami wave. So basically, you see like some sort of uplift, and then which apparently brings a BART tube up to the surface, and the BART train pops out. I mean, again, that's a significant vertical motion, which we don't expect to see. Also, that of course is in downtown San Francisco. Well, the San Andreas fault does not go through downtown San Francisco. The San Andreas fault goes offshore in Daly City up to Point Reyes. And so again, the downtown San Francisco area is going to have very strong shaking, very serious shaking, but you're not going to have these big offsets, which is what you see actually on the fault. They show a scene where they have a wide view and you can see P waves and S waves, the actual seismic waves, kind of moving across the Bay Area, for example, LA, I guess, but it's moving across the area. And that's something that you probably would be able to see in a large earthquake, is maybe not as large an amplitude as they have, but you would actually be able to see the waves moving just like you see ocean waves.
The film does dramatize the events of a San Andreas fault shift, but is it really something that the city of San Francisco should be worried about? San Francisco has been hit hard in the past, and they've only rebuilt and created a stronger and better city. But it all leads down to the question California wants answered. Will there be the big one?
Unfortunately, there's no doubt about that. We know that there will be a large magnitude earthquake, probably like a magnitude 8, that will occur on the San Andreas fault. The only unknown is when. And so the fact that the San Francisco sits right next to the San Andreas fault means that it is a certainty that this is going to happen at some point. The last time this happened was, of course, in 1906, and when we had a magnitude 8 on the San Andreas fault. And we try to estimate the likelihood of that earthquake occurring again over the coming years. What we cannot do is say it's going to happen on Wednesday. But what we can do is say what's the likelihood of an earthquake like that over some longer period of time. And so the answer is yes, there is a big earthquake coming. There's a big earthquake coming on the San Andreas fault. There's a big earthquake coming on the Hayward fault in the East Bay as well. So we have to be ready for that. There's a very high probability that one of those earthquakes will occur during our lifetime. It's about a 2 in 3 chance of a large damaging earthquake in the next 30 years. So unfortunately, we have no mechanism to really understand when that's going to happen or see any indicators until the actual earthquake happens. However, what we can do now is we can very rapidly see the earthquake is happening. We can detect the earthquake, and then we can send out a warning to people before they feel the shaking. And so this is what's called earthquake early warning. There's several things that people can do. Number one, they should download the MyShake app. So if they download the MyShake app, it's free. They will get earthquake alerts. They will get a few seconds warning before the earthquake's shaking so they can protect themselves. The action that everybody should do in an earthquake is drop, cover, and hold on, right? So you get down on the floor. That's so that you don't fall over and injure yourself. Cover means you get under a sturdy table so that things can't fall onto you. And then hold on is you hold on to the table so that it stays over you. Number two is, what is your plan as an individual? What's the plan to bring people together? What's the plan for the following 3, 4, 5 days after a big earthquake, when we're going to be fending for ourselves? The emergency services are going to be dealing with injuries and things like that. We're going to have to look after ourselves.
As a first responder, I'm a fire captain now. The whole system is going to be overwhelmed, whether it's a wildfire or an earthquake. An earthquake, it's going to be really bad. What concerns me is how is it going to affect our response time based on the traffic? How is it going to affect the water supply because of the massive amounts of fire that's going to probably occur? And then, depending on how strong the city waterways are, is that going to be compromised? So all those things come to mind as a first responder and what my concerns would be. And then prepping. Not a lot of people prep for this kind of stuff.
So it's important that we all take on that responsibility. And then you can prepare. You can do the things that I suggested. You can get warnings. You can have a plan. And you can be thinking about the buildings that you live and work in. If we pay attention to that, then we can be in a place where, yes, an earthquake will have an impact on us, but we don't expect it to kill us, right? That's the goal here.